Evening and welcome everybody into Two-Man Game here on ClaibsOnline.com. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's my co-host, Bob Ramsey. We're going to talk a little basketball today, presented by Royal Banks of Missouri and Munganess St. Louis Acura. Rammer, it's been a little bit. I got a little sick, then I had a little vacation, so I apologize for the lack of recordings here over the last week or two of NBA and college action. But Rammer, how have you been doing, my good friend?
I've been doing well. You don't need to apologize to me. I just need more naps, and so it works out perfectly.
There you go.
But for our listeners and for me, I always look forward to your insight, whether it's college or pro. And so I did miss visiting with you because I learned something every time.
Well, let's jump right in. SLU has now played 3 games. They're 3-0. We've seen some interesting stuff. Murray State, Evansville, and then Memphis. I guess let's kind of work backwards. The thing we've seen most recently, obviously, last night was the win against Memphis. Got a little dicey at the end after some back and forth play in the first half. Overall, I still came away very impressed with the Billikens. What were your immediate takeaways from last night's win over the Memphis Tigers?
Tremendous college basketball game.
Absolutely.
Many of the national pundits had this on their list of games to watch last night, of the 4 or 5 top games around the country, and this game absolutely delivered. 2 teams, slightly different approaches, both very athletic, both very intense. Each tried to take away strengths from the other team and were successful at times. And it was just a good basketball game. The Billikens, against a really good team, scored 90 points. Their shooting percentages were good. And for a team that likes to get after it, Memphis only could force 11 turnovers. In any kind of a game, 11 turnovers is a good number. And against Memphis, it's a superb number. I thought the Billikens played well.
Yeah, I did as well. I mean, I was really just came away impressed with just how consistent they were for big chunks of the game. Obviously, you had the big run at the end of the game by Memphis, but outside of that, we didn't see the lulls, and obviously until the big one. And it's kind of a thing where you're being relative. But I thought I saw the consistency, which I thought would be the difference in the game. When Travis talked about kind of the match between these two teams, he talked about how they're very similar teams. They both like to get out and run, and they have a very similar profile. But the big difference for me is that I think I saw the Billikens as a more polished team, obviously a better shooting team, and that would eventually be the difference. And I thought that's what we saw last night, was that they could St. Louis could get out and run with Memphis when they wanted to. And as long as they weren't making dumb turnovers, they weren't getting overwhelmed by Memphis's ability to speed the game up and get out and run. But the big difference was when things slowed down and the half-court game came into play, they were able to get shots and make their shots, and Memphis simply wasn't able to. That was the big difference. Is they have the athleticism, but they also have the skill and the shooting, and that's why we're being so excited about this offense from the get-go.
Yeah, I don't want to sound overly defensive, but I probably am. And this is not necessarily directed at you, but just St. Louis U Billikens general conversation, and that is, Memphis made a big run at the end, but that's because they're good. It's a game of runs. I don't care whether you're on the playground, whether you're in high school, college, pros. Basketball is a game of runs. That's the way the game is played. You don't take turns back and forth, making a bucket it's just how the game is played.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I saw a lot of hand-wringing even after the victory on some social media, and I admit that's my problem for paying too close attention to social media. But, you can't give up those runs. Well, that's how the game is played. And you were a 2.5-point favorite, and you won by 6. I'm speechless. The shooting numbers were good. The turnover numbers were good. The defensive numbers were good. Here is the difference.
Yeah, you allowed 40%. You allowed a 40% shooting percentage from the field, 29% from deep. And you out rebounded them by 5. The only thing they really beat you in kind of the hustle or defense was offensive rebounds. But that was because they were missing more shots.
Well, there's another reason for that. I'm glad you led into that, because that's exactly what I would talk about. It drove Travis crazy, Travis Ford. For those of you who don't know, that I do the Billiken games on radio, and Travis is right in front of me, to the point that I often have to get up and look around him. He's right in front of me. So I see his reaction when things go good and when things go bad. It was driving him crazy. And to borrow from hockey, I really don't believe much in puck luck. You sometimes, but you can't really quantify it, I don't think.
No.
I know advanced metrics people try to. I don't buy it. Well, the offensive rebound disparity in the two teams was because of the long shots by Memphis that were taking long rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
Travis and other coaches would tell you, well, you got to outwork them to get there. Okay, I get the sentiment.
Yeah, you have to say that.
You've posted yourself up. You've blocked out the opponent, and it goes over your head. To suggest you're going to get back around the guy you boxed out and go get that ball more than half the time or even half the time, I really believe is unreasonable. So, having said that, to me, that's the disparity in the offensive rebounds. I really believe that.
I'm with you. And I think the thing we need to focus on is, just 2 years ago with the Billikens, if you would have told me a solid non-conference game that leaned on them hitting a bunch of free throws down the stretch, I would have been like, well, get them next time. I mean, you went 27 to 36 from the line, and Yuri Collins hit the most he's ever hit in his career. I mean, that kind of clutch play from the entire team to, even after that run, hit those free throws. That's a situation where, again, even 2 years ago, they don't win that game, primarily because even with the free throws, they don't hit them. And I think, part of that's different personnel, but I think part of that's also a mentality. And this, I think, speaks to Travis Ford having these guys over 3-4 years and the culture they've built on that team.
Yeah, there's another great point that dovetails with what you're saying. In the first half, Memphis was out shooting the Billikens, not necessarily in percentage, but in attempts and makes. And that's a real hard way to go trying to win a game when the other team is shooting more and making more free throws. And I even mentioned to my partner and our sometimes partner/guest, Earl Austin Jr., I go, Bill's got to turn that around or this is not going to go well. Sure enough, they did. And they had more attempts and makes in the second half by a lot. And that was a huge difference in the game.
Last 2 points, some of the hand-wringing you're talking about is people, chalking up that run to minutes without Yuri Collins. I thought two of the most interesting things there is, one, the amount of times they give to Javonte Perkins at the timeline, even when Yuri Collins is on the floor, tells me that as soon as he's 100% and moving 100%, because basketball skills are 100%, but I still think the physical thing is like 10% away just with the
Correct.
fluidity of him being his athleticism. As soon as that gets right, that's and sub point there is, if a team's able to successfully trap Yuri Collins multiple times, then you just got to be like, okay, they're a good defensive team, and any point guard is going to have trouble with them. And the third point is going to be Yuri post-game. I thought the most interesting comment coming out of there was him saying that, when he saw things getting a little hinky, he didn't even go to Travis. He just stood up from the bench and walked straight to the scorer's table. And he's like, I know it's been 30 seconds, coach, but I'm not liking what we're seeing. And that level of trust I just thought was really interesting. And also, because Yuri just gave us some great answers last night in the postgame, as he's walking out, I thought it was great. He gets up, they're finishing the postgame, and he stands there and just goes, hold on. He just goes, make sure you guys write about our fans in the student section when you write out your articles tonight. Because he was like, hey, do not forget to give them credit. So credit to the fans, credit to the student section. They were great last night in a huge game. Every single big moment, it felt like the roof was coming off Chaffetz. It was and Travis also, talked about how important the fan base has been through these first few games. And last night was no different. That was an impressive job by the fan base.
Yeah. It wasn't quite filled, but it felt like it. And atmosphere goes to students. There's no doubt about it. And so that's good that Yuri recognizes that. The relationship between the players and the students is very close. Sometimes there's a coolness in at some places between the athletics and the athletes who are, I'm not going to say put on a pedestal, but put, in their own world on campus. And that's not the case at St. Louis U, and I'm glad it's recognized.
Also, a solid start to the season has been the Missouri Tigers. They're 4-0. They've played Southern Indiana, Penn, Lindenwood, and SIUE. Again, not the best schedule in non-conference. SIUE is a solid team. They always show out. But again, it's different when you're talking about an SEC team. My big thing with Mizzou is they've been a lot of fun to watch. Getting to watch Demoy Hodge put up 30 points last night was incredible. Was a lot of fun, and the offense has been so much fun to watch. Anytime you have 100-point games, it's going to be a lot of fun. My big question, though, I do have to ask is there going to be some more defensive cohesiveness as the non-conference schedule goes on? Because giving up 91 points to a team playing their first ever Division I game in Southern Indiana, giving up 80 points to SIUE, 85 to Penn. Again, fast-paced games, a lot of possessions, but teams are shooting the lights out right now. Is that something that's going to regress towards the mean, and it's just you're catching some hot teams who are good offensively because that's how they survive in their leagues? Or is this potentially a team that's just going to have to win games in the 80s, which I don't think is going to work that well long-term in the SEC? It's a lot of fun to watch right now, but I just can't help but have questions when I watch SIUE and Penn and Southern Indiana go for 85, 80, what have you.
I don't know Coach Gates. I don't know the personnel to know what they're about. But I've always believed that anybody can play defense. It's technique and desire. Technique and desire. The staff teaches the technique. The players got to want to do it. And some can't commit to it. Sometimes you have a group that just can't commit. It's way too early to say that's the case in Columbia.
And that's fair, but I think it is also fair when you talk about commitment and technique. You also get out rebounded by SIUE, only by 4 offensive rebounds. But I think it speaks to is there that hustle aspect? Again, these guys can shoot the lights out. Not taking anything away from them. You just got to wonder when the non-conference schedule right off the bat gets a little bit trickier. And then the SEC schedule obviously ramps up. We're talking about conference play. Are you going to be able to win a bunch of track meets? If you can, good for you. I'll happily eat crow in that one. The one thing I will say, Dennis Gates coming from that Florida State tree from Hamilton. Those guys churned out 6'7", 6'9", hybrid forward, do everything kind of players. They churned those guys out year after year after year. And so that – obviously, it helps if you're 6'7" and you have a 7-foot wingspan. But again, you talk about technique and effort. Those guys were always playing hard defense at Florida State. So something tells me that Gates knows how to get the most out of players. He knows how to get guys playing defense. So I think there's a lot of positivity because you're scoring like that and you have a coach who has that track record and who's brought assistants who also have that track record from those programs. It makes me think they're going to be able to score. And they were a good scoring team at Cleveland State. They weren't the best defensive team either. But again, you always have to play with your personnel. And so I have positivity about Mizzou basketball, which is more than we've been able to say over the last 2 years and over the last 5 or 6 years. I'm excited to watch them, and it's an enjoyable time because of the offensive basketball. And as much as I like Konzo Martin, I was consistently very critical of that staff's ability to coach, to draw up a half-court offense consistently against better competition. This one, I have no questions about that one. You tune into Mizzou, you're going to be watching a fun, enjoyable college basketball game. And honestly, when we're talking about a season that lasts six months and potentially some tournament runs, that's all I'm really asking for.
At Missouri Columbia, I don't think that there needs to be any disclaimers and certainly no apologies for the non-conference schedule. And here's why. They're at a place they need to learn how to win. They need to learn how to play. You pointed out the offense is good. They got to get the defense on track. You're not going to do that against top 20 teams in November. This is a team and a group that has to work together. They have to gel. And the way you do it is get wins on the schedule early, learn how to win. If you can learn lessons and still get a W, that is gold. That is absolute gold. And this is where Coach Gates, and that's why I'm confident, like you, that the Tigers will be able to do that.
Absolutely. A little bit of NBA talk here to cap off the show. Last time we talked about the NBA was when the Ime Udoka rumors were swirling. The Nets, whether they were forced or consciously, made a good decision in just an absolute tornado of bad ones. Jacques Vaughn was hired as the interim head coach instead of Ime Udoka. Again, was it a forced decision or actually a good one? But other things continue to implode. First of all, they're not very good on the court. Kevin Durant had some very interesting comments about how, hey, people expect to win no matter who's on the court with me because I'm me. I'm paraphrasing, of course. But essentially, that's what he said. Then you also have Kyrie Irving, rightfully. Let's point this out. I'm not against Kyrie. Rightfully making some comments at Joe Tsai, the owner, after he kind of came over the top of Kyrie with a little bit of moral, you know, you know, big stack bullying, if you will, and he has no actual right to stand on any shoes. He has no legs to stand on when it comes to that topic in the first place. So everything from the Nets on the court and relation to on the court and off the court and the front office, what have you, everything of the Nets, while somehow getting slightly simpler with Jacques Vaughn, has just continued to roll down this hill of just ridiculousness.
Between all the things you mentioned and Simmons and all the stuff going
And
on.
oh my God, I haven't even got the Athletic article about Simmons today is a huge new thing that's just it's comical again.
Except if you're in the Brooklyn Nets organization or a fan, there's nobody laughing.
No.
Normally, if you'd say something like what I'm about to say, you'd call it hyperbole and just trying to make a point and all that kind of stuff. I might be to the point that the owner needs, even if he's culpable, maybe especially if he's culpable, blow the whole thing up, move players, fire everybody, and start over. I don't see a way to fix it with what they have. Well, let's move this piece and let's get this front office guy and let's get. I don't see a fixable road to go down. There's too many. They're not potholes. They're sinkholes. You can't fix a sinkhole. Especially not in season. I know there are many pieces that would be coveted around the league. I really think it's probably time they look at that.
And the crazy thing is it's not a crazy comment. They tried to blow it up in the summer. It didn't work. They didn't get good enough offers, in their opinion, for Durant, and no one wants Kyrie. And here's the thing: Kyrie's trade value has not exactly increased in the meantime. And while Durant's has probably only gone down a little bit, just because while he's playing well, he's clearly not at the same level, especially if you try to if he's your only 7-footer, you can't play good defensive basketball. And so that's different from 2 or 3 years ago. So his value might even have gone down just slightly, even though he's still one of the best scorers in the world. And so I don't even know if the deals are there to blow it up in a convenient or, even just a methodical way with a plan.
No plan.
Yeah, there's no plan.
Here's the plan. You move anybody you can for anything you can get, and it's a legitimate way to tank. Nobody could look you in the eye and say, "Oh no, you could fix this." It's not fixable. I think it's the only legitimate way that organization, they would still be a couple of years away from competing, but the way they're going now, I don't see a time when they would ever compete.
Okay, so they shockingly, this is unfreaking believable. I cannot believe they have their own first-round pick this year. It's legitimately shocking. So I mean, yeah, they could completely tank. The new tanking term, by the way, that I saw that I like is brick for Vic. That's just good. That's just every year somebody comes up with the perfect one, and it's like, yeah, you win the prize this year. Brick for Vic is fantastic. So yeah, brick for Vic in Brooklyn. They actually have their first round pick. It's the only first round pick between now and they don't have one in 2024, 2025, or 2026. So I mean, you talk about potentially salvaging anything out of just the worst situation ever. You completely blow it up this year, and then you land the greatest NBA prospect in the last 5, 10, the last 10, 20 years maybe, aside from maybe LeBron, the greatest European prospect ever. I mean, that's That's better than anything else I can think of with this team. I'm with you. I'm just do not make a sequenced plan like you would if you were actually going to like demolition a building. Just run around the proverbial organization in Barclays Center and just start throwing sticks of dynamite in random places and just run out the building and be like, well, whatever we get, that's what we get. There is no planned demolition here. It's not going to be some perfect implosion. We're just throwing sticks of dynamite and starting gas fires in different places and just seeing what the hell is there afterwards.
You're making an estate sale. What do
Yeah,
you give me for this couch? Okay, I'll take it. And then
exactly.
what I think they should try and do is try and replenish those draft picks. And it's going to take time, but if they don't do those things, I just don't see how that when would they compete next? Years and years. It's a mess.
And speaking of blowing it up, the teams that people thought they were, that still are surprising everybody, the Portland Trailblazers still sit atop the Western Conference. The Utah Jazz still sit in third place right now, behind the Denver Nuggets. The East is starting to be a little bit more what we expected. Although Philadelphia is an 8 seed right now, and the 5 seed is the Washington Wizards. And I tell you what, right now, a big reason they're a 5 seed, the big reason they're winning games, you get damn good minutes from Jordan Goodwin every single night. 15, 17 good minutes. The other night he literally made NBA history, going 7 for 7 from the field, having blocks, steals, rebounds, assists, all in there. Jordan Goodwin, right out of the gate, pretty much has been a legitimately big bench player for the Washington Wizards. They're winning games. They're more fun to watch. They're really right now the biggest surprise in the East. I mean, people saw the Cavs coming. People did not think the Wizards would be a above 500 team threatening for a legitimate non-play-in playoff spot.
All the things Jordan Goodwin is doing. Where is this guy? How is he doing this? Well, I don't know how he's doing it, except that he's always done it. From high school to college to G League and the NBA. This is the way the guy has always played. Yep. It's who he is.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to keep on watching it. Again, the Wizards, they're going to be fun to watch. I think probably they're maybe still around a 8 or 9 seed. I'm going to bump them up a little bit. But again, you get good, solid bench play like that, and you start getting young players developing. That's how you become a better team. The other big thing, eventually the Warriors are going to snap back in. Them and the Clippers, I just every time I watch them, it's a frustrating watch almost, because you just know there's so much more there, and it hasn't come to the fore yet. And so maybe I'm going to be wrong, and these teams are going to be this kind of sluggish the entire season. But I think right now and Christmas, those are going to be the two teams that have just completely changed everyone's perception of them and kind of locked back in what we thought. They're going to be the Clippers and the Warriors. And then does that mean it's the Jazz that drop back? I don't know. But I really think that's the only thing I'm confident right now that's going to be a big change between now and a few months from now. The Clippers and the Warriors, they got to get better, or else this is not the season I was expecting from either of them.
Where's Golden State play?
San Francisco.
Okay. I'm going to go back old school. They used to be the San Francisco Warriors. I think they should go back to that. Anyway, so for San Francisco, I would not pin this on a single guy, but I'm fearful for Klay Thompson being able to get back to where he was a few years ago. I thought after the way the season finished for him that he would. He's one of my favorite players to watch. So I'm hopeful that he's just been, it's early in the year, inconsistent, but I think that's a problem for them.
Yeah, I didn't get to it today, but I think it was Ramona Shelburne actually just posted on ESPN a few hours, earlier this morning, posted a huge piece on ESPN, and the title, Inside Klay Thompson's Epic Comeback to Become the Player He Used to Be. And that's kind of exactly what I was thinking. I saw that this morning, and that made me, and that kind of locked in exactly what I thought, which is I don't want to harp on it because he's still deadly in certain ways, but just Klay Thompson, the evolution of Klay Thompson and what really made him the player he was before he was exploding for 50-point quarters and what have you. Right out of the gate, he was obviously the jump shooter he was, but he was a defender that no one expected he was going to be. And that made the backcourt with him and Steph Curry work not only offensively, but more importantly defensively, because he could take anybody else and give them good defensive minutes the entire game. But his evolution as a driver and his ability to score in different ways like that, that's when he went from being a nice 20, 22-point player to one of the most deadly scorers in the entire league. My favorite anecdote will always be his dad, Michael Thompson, the famous Laker, only calling his layups clayups, because he's like, only you could do some ever goofy stuff you do with your layups. He's like, you're 6'7", you're bigger than everybody, and you cannot hit a freaking layup over anybody. So he called them clayups because they were so bad. He wouldn't protect the ball. He went up weak every time, and he finally changed that and became a deadly player in that part of his game. And it's not there right now because that first step, his ability to beat guys, because he was never the fastest player in the world. Now you take away a little bit, a fraction of a step even, and he's having trouble getting that part of his game out. And his defense isn't there because he just can't smother guys and stay with them, foot speed the way he was before. And I just wonder, are those things ever going to come back to the level of where he was prior to the injury? And that's been the question. I mean, that's been the question now for a year. We see it in spurts. We see it again. The shooting's still there, but it's just consistently the defense is not there. And then of course the James Wiseman thing with him getting sent down. Again, effort, and those kind of things. When you're 7 feet tall and super athletic, again, I'm not saying that just because he's 7 feet tall that James Wiseman should be stumbling into 20 and 10 games. But with his athleticism and his basketball skill, there's no way he should be playing in the G League. That's just the bottom line. And with the players around him, Kevon Looney, Festus Ezeli, I mean, nothing. I'm not trying to take anything away from those guys, but those are the guys who fit like a puzzle piece into that Golden State Warriors team for years. Andrew Bogut, Maurice Spates. I mean, some of these guys are solid players, but none of them are world beaters. None of them are Hall of Famers. It's not as difficult to play in the Golden State Warriors scheme as a lot of other teams. And yet even a guy like Wiseman isn't able to fit into it right now. And it's always been defense with the Warriors. And that's the thing that people don't understand. The question was always, can a jump shooting team win an NBA championship? And the answer to that question was always, well, if they're a top 10 defense, they sure as hell can. And that's always been the through line when they've won. And it's not there right now. Agreed. And so it's not there right now. So that's the only way it changes between now and Christmas. But if it does, and we get a consistently healthy Kawhi Leonard in LA, those are the two big switches in the West. The East is starting to break down a little bit. The Cavs are great. It's weird to watch a Cavs team and call them good when LeBron James isn't on them. It's freaky. Every time I go to watch a Cavs game, I'm like, okay, cool. Where's number 23? All right. Oh, wait. This is an actually talented team without LeBron James. But Evan Mobley's a monster. Donovan Mitchell, I'm going to have to eventually eat a lot of crow on how good he might be. But he's not in Utah. He's not a Utah Jazz anymore, so it feels a little bit better. I don't know why. So we'll see how those things continue. Obviously, watch some Washington Wizards. Jordan Goodwin's been a blast to watch right off the bat. Yep. There's going to be a lot of good games coming up. Watch the Denver Nuggets because Nikola Jokic he's putting together another incredible season. It's one of those things I guarantee you right now. His numbers, you're going to read an article in June about how his numbers are better than they were the last 2 years, and then he's going to finish fourth in the MVP voting because people are not going to want to vote for him at all because that's how MVP voting goes. But he's been a blast to watch. This NBA season's been great. I can't wait to talk more about it with Bob Ramsey, but we're running late on time, and we got some things to do later today. So, Bob Ramsey, thank you so much for joining me today on the two-man game. And before we get out of here, tell us a little bit about Royal Banks of Missouri.
Royal Banks of Missouri, it's where better service means better banking. Locations, St. Louis, St. Charles, on the east side, in Granite and Jerseyville, and new branches in northeast Missouri, and all of them feel like your hometown bank. 314-212-1500 or go online to royalbanksofmo.com. Royal Banks, member FDIC and equal housing lender.
God, you're good at those, Ramsey. And we're also brought to you by Munganess St. Louis Acura. We're going to talk about them here a little bit after we head out of here. So, Bob Ramsey, thank you so much for joining me today. SLU is up against Maryland. Coming up this weekend, and obviously the game after that will be TBD, depending on who wins the other game in that little tournament they got going there. So we got some SLU basketball to talk about next week, and obviously some more NBA basketball we're talking about all season. This has been Two-Man Game on ClaibsOnline.com. Thank you again, Rammer. You have a great rest of your day. See you later, St. Louis.
As one of St. Louis's fastest growing companies and largest private companies, St. Louis Acura is proud to serve you and remains committed to becoming better than ever for you. As new Acuras become more available every day, we are not backing down from selling 100% more quality pre-owned vehicles than ever before. We want customers that appreciate our friendly, outgoing team and our award-winning service because at St. Louis Acura, we are better than ever for you.